I've been making money online since 2016, so that means as of today, I have 7 years of successes and failures under my belt. And at the very beginning, I was just trying everything and barely scraping by.
Baby proofer, trucker, hippie, plow driver, food critic, conceptual artist.
In my first year of making money online full time, I made about $38,000 to $40,000, which I thought was pretty good, but these days I make close to 10 times that, and it's all because of the principles I've learned for the past 7 years that I want to share with you in this video. I'm going to tell you how to actually earn money online, the 4 levels of making money online, and then finally, I'll actually tell you my own story. First, I want to explore what the concept of money actually is, because once we understand this, it becomes a lot easier to make money online. So here's the famous thinker Naval Ravikant, who's also the founder of AngelList, on what the concept of money is.
Money is how we transfer wealth. Money is social credits. It is the ability to have credits and debits on other people's time. If I do my job right, if I create value for society, society says, oh, thank you. We owe you something in the future for the work that you did in the past. Here's a little IOU, let's call that money.
So this is absolutely true. All money is simply a medium of exchange for something of value. If you hire someone to move your furniture, you're essentially paying them for their service and their time. So in this specific case, if you do hire a mover, you are doing it for the convenience of not having to move anything and the labor of not having to lift anything. So you might exchange a few $100s for that service of that mover. And when we move online, that's essentially the same thing that is happening. You're trying to figure out ways to provide value over the internet, and it's not super intuitive at first, but the idea is that as long as you provide value, you're going to get that money back in exchange for your service. In the physical world, you have a boss, a company, probably an office that you show up to perform tasks, and in exchange for performing those tasks, you make money. That's basically a physical infrastructure that's been already set up for you in order to earn money, and it's an infrastructure that we're all used to from the time that we start going to school. Making money online is very different because it's typically super unstructured. You have no one telling you what to do. You have to go find clients on your own and then get them to pay you for a service. So that's how I think about it, and I believe there are 4 levels to making money online, each progressively harder than the level that comes before it. The first level is what I call brute force, and this is where most people start because it's really simple and straightforward. It involves super time-consuming tasks, and sometimes they're even a little bit repetitive and quite tedious. For example, you could take surveys on popular survey websites like inboxdollars.com, or you could do these little micro tasks on Amazon Mechanical Turk. You could even do data entry for someone that's willing to pay you an hourly rate for that. But in general, all of these tasks have a very common denominator, which is that you're trading a lot of your time for a little bit of money. These methods are typically inefficient at the brute force level, and it's only really worth it if you're doing something at the same time. Perhaps you're watching a TV show or you're able to listen to a podcast or something like that. Most of you will not stay on this level for too long, or you might even completely skip it entirely and just go on to level 2. Now, level 2 is a more sustainable way to make money, and that's actually freelancing. Freelancing is one of the best ways to actually trade your skills in the marketplace to earn money. It's actually a method that I've done before quite extensively. Now, I've also sold products online, and I've also had a scaled media business, which we'll talk about later in this video. But for now, I want to talk about freelancing and why it's really good to start with. I believe it's one of the easiest ways to get started making money online because it taps into a lot of the skills that you already have. There are typically 2 sides to the freelancer equation. The first side is you have a skill or a service that you're willing to offer. And then the second side is that you're trying to find people that are willing to pay you for that said skill. All right, so let's talk about developing a skill or having a skill that you can market in the first place. A lot of us are skilled in something out there. So as long as you spent more time doing something than, let's say, some of your friends have, chances are is that you have a skill that they don't. That could be something like playing the piano. Perhaps you're a good drawer. Perhaps you like to edit TikToks in your spare time. Or perhaps it could be something like creating a website or creating Notion templates. For me personally, since I had some work experience before I started the whole freelancer thing, I actually worked for one of the biggest mobile gaming studios from the years of 2014 to 2016, and I became really good at marketing and sales. What I was doing at my job was to figure out how to get people to buy more of the in-app purchases that they saw within their game. So I intuitively just got really good at marketing sales funnels, especially when it came to selling a product online, which would eventually later help me in my own e-commerce store, as well as in future consulting opportunities. Now, if you don't have any skills at all and you're watching this video, the best part about the internet is that you can learn almost anything these days, and then once you have that skill, you can start to market that. If I were starting from scratch today, I'm really interested in writing, Photoshop, Excel, or even web design. I would probably take a free course on that, usually on YouTube, or you can even Google some free course websites. And once I had a little bit of experience with that skill, I would try to find someone to basically pay me for that service. If you're struggling with what type of skill to actually go after and find, or want to be a little bit more strategic when it comes to figuring out what skill to actually learn, you can go to a website like Upwork and Fiverr and just look at the current freelancers on that website and see what they're charging for their different services. Once you've identified that skill, you really want to go to step 2, which is the other side of the freelancing equation, which is looking for somebody that's willing to pay you for that service. For me personally, since I had the skill set from mobile gaming, I realized that it translated really well to e-commerce, and eventually I started actually consulting and freelancing for e-commerce stores, trying to improve their sales funnels so that they could sell more items to their customers. What I did personally was I was connected to a marketplace about 6 years ago just for marketers, and those marketers were paired with e-commerce stores that were looking for consultants to help them supercharge their sales growth. I personally helped one store called tinyheadedkingdom.com. I think they're still around today. They have really large body plushes with really tiny heads. They're actually pretty cute and pretty funny, but I helped them improve their sales funnel and also their marketing emails, and I was paid a consultant fee of around $75 an hour for that. What you can do personally, if you have that skill that you can market online, you can go to a website like the aforementioned Upwork or Fiverr, and you can list yourself as a freelancer ready to work. One method that you can do to guarantee some business comes in, especially early on when you have no reputation online, is to start kind of small and maybe even undercharge for your services compared to the competitors. Once you do that and actually start getting some reputation under your belt and getting some 5-star reviews from your potential clients, then you can start to increase your rates over time. If you can become a top-rated freelancer on some of these websites like Upwork or Fiverr, you can actually make it into a full-time fledged business. So there's this extreme example of someone who made over $378,000 just simply writing on Fiverr.
I'm 28 years old and I make $378,000 per year as a freelance writer on Fiverr.com.
Okay, so freelancing is great and all, but it still has one little problem, which is you can only make as much as you're willing to work. So therefore, there's always going to be a ceiling on your earnings because it really depends on how much time you want to put in. Even if the hourly rate is super high, you'll still hit an earnings ceiling at some point, which is why we want to make it into the next level of making money online, which is selling something that can actually scale. Level 3 of making money online is selling products. Now, when I think about selling products, I'm thinking about physical products or digital products, but let's talk about physical first. Within the physical product space, you can sell products that exist already. You can sell products that are, quote, white labeled, or you can create your own product. There are just so many different methods to selling products online. A popular method out there to sell products online is called dropshipping. Now, I'm sure you've probably heard of this term before, but it's essentially a business model that puts together a supplier and a buyer. Now, the key difference of this particular business model is that you as the middleman don't actually own the inventory. You simply get orders online through either your own website or through your own marketing efforts, and then you're gonna place an order on your supplier's website and ship it directly to your customer. Since you're not handling the product ever, it's not really the most legit way of selling a product online, but one of the benefits is that you can get started with a really low startup cost, often under $1,000. There are a lot of cons to dropshipping though, which is that sometimes because you're ordering a product from, let's say, a wholesaler in China, the shipping time can be actually up to 3 or 4 weeks. In an age where online shipping is usually 2 business days, 3 or 4 weeks is typically unacceptable, and what's gonna actually happen with your customers is that they're gonna get really pissed off, and then they're gonna start charging back to your own website, which means that they're canceling their orders through their credit card. That doesn't sound like a bad problem. However, your payment processor, whoever is handling your payments, does not wanna see a chargeback rate of higher than 1%. So what essentially happens is that you'll eventually get shut down due to your payment processor, and then you're unable to actually accept payments. Dropshipping is usually touted as one of those ways to get rich really quickly, and you'll see a lot of young people trying to do it. However, it is extremely difficult, and like anything, you're only seeing the top 1 or the top 0.5% actually being successful. The rest of them are actually failing at it. It could be a business model that you actually try just to get some experience, but I wouldn't expect to be successful off the bat with dropshipping. The next level of selling online physical products is called white labeling, and that's where you're gonna find a supplier that already makes a type of product that you wanna sell. For example, let's say you find a vendor that sells yoga mats and you simply wanna put your own brand on it. So you create your own yogi brand. Perhaps you to call it Mind Over Matter. I mean, that's a pretty good yoga name brand. So if you want to steal it, go for that. Just, you know, make sure to give me some royalties. With white labeling, you're essentially finding a vendor that creates a really good product, and then you're slapping your own brand on it and then selling it as your own. So you would get that yoga mat, you would slap on Mind Over Matter on it, and then you would have your own website, mindovermatter.com or whatever you want to call it, and then you would sell those yoga mats, but they would be white labeled. With this method, you typically have to hold inventory, so you're typically ordering from the vendor itself, maybe 100 or 1,000 units, and that requires a large startup cost up front. And this method is a little bit more legit than dropshipping itself. Because you hold your own inventory, you can ship it out a lot faster and you can guarantee quality control, which is a very big benefit compared to the other business model of dropshipping. White labeling is generally a good business route to go down, especially if you have a strong vision for your brand and a unique brand proposition. However, your products aren't going to be that differentiated at the end of the day. So that's why I think the ultimate method of selling a product online is to create your own. Whether that's taking an existing concept that's out there already and implementing your own twist on it, or completely innovating on your own unique product. When you create your own product, you have full control over everything. Now, the downside is that it probably requires the most upfront investment out of all three options. However, since you have your own unique or innovative product, that means whenever you're selling it in the marketplace, it's a lot easier to sell because hopefully it solves a problem or a need and is not already existing out there. So that way you don't really have that many competitors to start with. I personally created a twist off an existing product when I started my own e-commerce store, which I'll tell you about in just a second here. However, I still think creating a product of your own is one of the best ways to go because you're gonna learn the full stack of how a business works. You'll understand the full process of how an item is created, how it's distributed, how it's fulfilled, how to market it, how the margins work, branding, customer service, etc. Now, if you don't want to sell physical products, what you can do is sell digital products, and digital products are usually those like online PDFs, ebooks, digital downloads, or maybe even an online course. These are typically educational products, but the idea here is that if you have some sort of knowledge that you're willing to share with your audience, or some sort of specific knowledge that you think other people will value, then you could possibly create a product and then sell it online. So back in the day, I was pretty good at email marketing, especially for online e-commerce stores, and I created a 56-page online PDF on just email marketing, and I partnered with somebody on Twitter in order to help me sell that PDF. Eventually, we sold over $7,000 worth of sales on just this PDF product alone, and I spent about 5 business days making it up front, so I thought that was a pretty good return. Digital products have what's called a zero marginal cost of reproduction. That means as long as you make the product one time, it can continue to sell multiple copies. That's kind of what you see with online PDFs, but a book in the physical world is very much operates like the same way. Once you write the book one time, it can sell multiple copies. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, duh, Humphrey, even if I have a physical product or an online product, how am I going to get it in front of other people? That's a very valid question, and it's very hard to get it in front of other people. Finding buyers is not the easiest thing out there unless you have an audience already, which is actually going to be level 4, which is a scaled media business where we have an audience. You could also call this an intention business. Essentially what it means is as long as you put out valuable content out on the internet for free, what actually happens is that you start to build an audience that knows you, follows you, and trusts you for all their advice or their guidance on whatever topic you might be talking about, which means that whenever you do have a product for sale, then you can leverage your audience that already knows you, follows you, and trusts you. The other advantage of an intention business is that just by putting out the content that you put out regularly, you could actually get paid a percentage of ad revenue depending on the platform that you posted on. But for example, on YouTube, you would get almost half of the ad revenue from all of the ads shown on your free videos. And I also think that one of the best parts about making content online in general is the same principle of zero cost of replication. As long as you make that piece of content, perhaps it's a blog article or a YouTube video, one time, it can be viewed or read hundreds of thousands of times just for the same amount of work. Now, one of the biggest advantages of having a media business, in my personal opinion, is the fact that you can subsidize what's called cost of acquisition. So in the traditional business model, whenever you're trying to acquire customers, they have what's called a cost of acquiring a customer. Say you're selling a custom poster for $60 and it costs you $20 to print. That means you have $40 of profit to work with. In a traditional model, you might pay $30 to, let's say, Facebook ads or Instagram ads or TikTok ads in order to acquire one customer. That means at the end of the day, if it costs you 20 bucks to print the poster and then $30 to acquire a customer for that said poster, and you're selling it for 60 bucks, you're only profiting $10 per order, basically. You can see how quickly the margin disappears whenever you have to actually pay for the cost of marketing as well, which is why having a scaled media business or an attention-based business really powerful. It's a world where you could get a customer for close to nothing because you already have the follower or the subscriber on your organic channels, and that way whenever you post about that product, you could see some sales. So that's the power of having a media business. Now, another media business that I want to tell you about is my free newsletter called Hump Days. That's where we come out with business and finance content twice a week, so make sure to subscribe to it for free, completely free, down below. All right, now I'm going to tell you about my journey with online business and my first e-commerce store. I hope that you can learn something from my story. Hopefully you take something away that saves you not only time, but also money from all of the mistakes that I've made. So my story is that I stumbled into selling products online simply by chance. So it was the end of 2016. I just quit my job at this mobile gaming studio, and by the time it was early 2017, I was trying to think about what things I could start on my own. I had enough money saved up and I was living at home that I just really wanted to take a chance on something, but the problem was that I didn't really have any ideas at the time. So I'm the type of person where once I have the idea, I'm really good at executing on that said idea. However, finding ideas is really tough for me. I mean, the same thing goes usually for my YouTube videos. Luckily at that time in early 2017, there was a friend of mine who approached me who had just moved from Europe to the United States, and he saw that they were selling in Europe these custom posters of maps, but it wasn't being heavily executed on in the US at that time. He basically was pretty entrepreneurial and wanted us to do the same thing and go into business together, so that's what we did. So the idea was pretty simple. We wanted to create an interface where people could come to our website and pan around a type of Google Maps experience online, and then get the exact cross-section of the map that they were kind of hovered on as a poster print. Once they had chosen their cross-section, they could actually customize the name, the coordinates, and also the date, as well as the color of the map, and then it would get printed and shipped to them. Okay, so there were actually a few problems that we had to solve even with this idea in our heads. So number one, how do we create the interface? Number two, where would we get it printed and shipped? And number three, how do we market the product and get it in front of people? If you think about these three problems, they are the basis for any type of product business out there, whether it's online or physical, which is number one, how do we make the thing? Number two, how do we produce the thing? And then number three, how do we get it in front of people? I'm going to walk through each of these problems in particular and how I solved it, and also potentially give you some ideas on how you can solve it in today's world. For number one, on how to create the interface, we basically had no idea of how to do it. At the time, there were some Shopify templates, but the templates didn't allow you to create customization within every single product. So at that point, we knew that we had to turn to engineering to solve what we wanted to actually do. And so we looked around for some developers in the United States and got some quotes for how much that website would cost. One of the developers that we were talking to closely was based in the United States, and they quoted us $50,000 for the website, just the V1 of the website, which was going to be a pretty big risk and investment on our part because 50K divided by 2 partners is 25K each. So since that seemed like too big of a risk, what we actually did was we tapped into some engineers that were friends of friends from other countries in Eastern Europe. And so we actually found was a developer by the name of Simonis, shout out Simonis, but he was $50 an hour and he was from Lithuania. He had great English skills and he was a developer that came with a lot of references, and basically what he told us was that our website could be made by him and his team for about $10,000 to $15,000 US, which was a lot more palatable at the time. I mean, that means each of us would have to come up with maybe $7,500 each, plus maybe $2,500 for marketing and miscellaneous expenses. I figured my all-in cost was probably $10K just for my portion, just to start this website. The takeaway here is that if you're starting a product business, make sure to do the research on different types of vendors and get different types of quotes from all over the marketplace, because you never know when you could save a little bit of money. I'm fairly certain that you can get a lot of product businesses started for less than 10K, and if you really want to get it started for even less than that, you can go with the dropshipping model. But essentially what I want to warn you guys against is that when you get really excited early on in the whole entrepreneurship and starting a business process, it can be really tempting to just go with the first quote that you get. In the beginning, you might just be filled with so much excitement that you're just ready to get started, but I've actually seen friends do this and they actually end up overpaying their vendors, and their vendors don't end up delivering in the future. And so it's really important to just take the time up front and make sure you research all your options before diving into it. Now, for problem number 2, which is how to get the thing made or how to get our posters produced, this is where I had to do some research. I went around to a ton of different printing facilities over the course of 2 weeks in February 2017, and I was trying to narrow them down based on a set of questions that I kind of had drawn up beforehand. The questions would range, but for example, it was like, how would the website transfer the print files to the printer? That was pretty essential. What was the best resolution for the files to come over in? How could we automate the files to get to the printer on a daily basis? What type of paper should we use? How big of the paper or the poster should they be, etc., etc. I also wanted to figure out how much it would cost to print and ship the items, because that was going to play a huge role in how much margin we would have whenever we were selling the product itself. Once I had the answers to all of these questions, I was then able to start looking for a partner or a printing partner that was able to fulfill these requirements. And this is just simply what I like to call the discovery process of selling an item via a physical vendor. It's something that you're gonna have to do. I got pretty lucky and I was able to find a mom and pop printing shop called City Copy Printing here in San Francisco. And when we started to work with them, they basically would get the orders from us in an FTP server. So our website would automatically send those orders in an FTP server via a PDF file, and then they would just print them and ship them the next day. Our cost of printing plus shipped poster was $21. That was the cost to us. That included both the shipping label as well as the printing cost. Since we were selling them for about $60 on our website, that means that gave us a really healthy margin of 65% to get started with just on day one of our business. Now, to answer number 3, which was how do we get it in front of people? This was actually one of the hardest things to figure out because I had no idea how to get it in front of people. I had never done this type of e-commerce business before. In the beginning, I would just write articles to go on our website, and hopefully those would get optimized for the search engine maybe 3 or 6 months down the line. But that was a very long-term thinking type of mindset, and we needed sales immediately. So at the same time, we did almost everything we could to basically get eyeballs to our website. We created Instagram posts, we created Facebook posts, we were writing to different journalists across different types of gear websites like Gear Patrol or coolstuff.com. And then we also submitted our product to Product Hunt and a couple other websites that showcase new products online. We officially launched the business in May 2017, but our books go all the way back to March 2017, and you can actually see the growth that we achieved in the first few months just because of one single breakthrough. So we actually got in touch with the meme community on Instagram. I know it sounds kind of random and weird, but there were a lot of Instagram accounts that were meme pages that were selling ad space. Now in 2017, branded content was still pretty new to Instagram, and so you didn't have to disclose that it was an ad or anything like that. And the way that you would actually broker a deal with these meme pages was pretty archaic. All you had to do was DM them, negotiate a rate, send them the content, and then actually just pray that they would actually post the content, because there was actually no written contract to enforce it. But luckily, a lot of the memers would operate just based on reputation and had really good word of mouth. So eventually we found who were the good people to work with, and as long as they posted our ads, we would actually see a return on those marketing dollars. Throughout that year, I found that if I had spent $1 on marketing with a meme page, I would typically get around $3 to $4 back in revenue within the first 24 hours. This is known as return on ad spend. So our ROAS for the first 24 hours was between 3 and 4, which is really good. Plus the fact that continuing purchases would start to come in even days or weeks after that post was made. Oftentimes, whenever we did this too, we would get around 500 to even up to 2,000 followers. So those were free followers that we could continue to market to, in addition to just actually posting the advertisement itself. You can see how much we actually scaled our business via social media influencers, as we spent $420 on them in May 2017, then about $2,000 the next 2 months, and then $10K in August, $15K in September, and $26K in November. Through the first 7 months of business, we drove $272K in top line revenue at a net profit of around 16%, which was good, but you can also see that our technology costs, aka our developer, was costing us roughly 3 to 5K a month to keep the website stable and integrate new products. So long story short, we continued to scale via Instagram meme influencers in 2018 and 2019, all while trying to reduce our maintenance cost of actually keeping the website running. We also got into Facebook ads and Instagram ads in 2018 and 2019, but oftentimes we would break even on our ad spend, especially if the time of year was not during a holiday time of year. So that's basically what I learned about the poster and gifting business, is that it's entirely seasonal. We would struggle to break even during the low or summer months. And then during the holidays, that's where we would make all our money. Eventually, we created more products, rebranded the website, and actually worked on reducing our costs by switching printing providers. I actually flew to Dallas to find a new printer to work with that had better economies of scale so that we could get our printing costs and shipping costs all the way down. And because we were shipping from Dallas, it was a lot cheaper to ship to either coast because of their central location. At the end of the day, we got our printing cost plus shipping down to around $12 to $15 to get it shipped completely, which was a huge margin difference from the $21 that we were paying in San Francisco. So through 2018 and 2019, we had revenues of around $1.7 to $2 million, but our net profit percentage was pretty low. It hovered right around 10 to 15%. It was an extremely tough business that taught me a lot about just online business in general. And what I actually ended up realizing towards the end of it was that it just was never going to scale to a point where it was making a ton more money than what it was already making. Every time we tried to push the ad spend to go higher on Facebook and Instagram and other social media platforms like that, we would actually see that we would start to break even and then lose money as our reach expanded wider and wider, which just told me that the total market for these products was a little bit smaller than we had thought. It was right around the same time in 2019 that I started to think about other types of ways to make money. And so I stumbled into e-commerce consulting, so the freelancing in level 2, as well as starting to create content, which was level 4 of making money online, which I realized it probably had a bigger potential for me down in the future. So that's a brief story on my e-commerce business, but I think I have a ton of lessons to share with you guys that I'm going to summarize right now. So number one, these days, if I'm starting a product-based business, instead of using memers, I would probably use organic TikTok or Instagram reel marketing, because right now you can get a lot of free organic reach just by creating a really good video, especially with these new short form platforms. Number two, I would probably try to find a business that doesn't have a really high cost of upkeeping it. So with our custom website, since it was entirely custom, we always needed to have a developer on hand. Sometimes it would even cost us a lot to integrate existing software. So I remember a specific case where we had to spend about $3,000 to integrate a software that, if we were just on Shopify with just a normal templated product, would have just been a plugin where you just clicked one button and then we would have that existing software integrated already. So personally, I'd probably stay away from custom products in the future just because there's just a lot more variability with them, and it's just really hard to just streamline the sales process. Number three, I think we've talked about this already, but total market size matters. If you want a big outcome, you need to go after a really big market. Number four, my takeaway here is that you should just get started. Pick a budget that you're comfortable with and just kind of go for it, because even if you fail, you're still gonna learn a lot more than someone who doesn't even try at all. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this type of content, and let me know other types of money-making videos that you'd like to see from me in the future. Also, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out my next video right here, which is how to go from 0 to 100K in the span of a year. It's one of my favorite videos, and I think you'll get a lot of value out of it. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.